Chapter 1. The Forgotten Letter. Started with a letter. I had never seen it before. It was old, the paper faded and yellowed with time, the edges curled as if it had been hidden away for decades. I found it one stormy evening while cleaning out the attic of my grandmother's house. The rain pounded against the windows and the wind howled outside, but inside it was quiet. Too quiet. It was a house that had always been full of life. Laughter, voices, music. But now it felt abandoned, like a relic of the past that no one had bothered to preserve. Grandma had passed away a week ago, and I was left to sort through her belongings. It was a bittersweet task. I had spent so many summers at her house as a child, running through the gardens, hiding in the old oak tree out back, listening to her tell stories of her youth. But now there were only the empty rooms, the dusty furniture, and the faint smell of lavender that still lingered in the air. It was as if she had just stepped out for a moment, but I knew better. My fingers brushed against the wooden beam that ran across the far corner of the attic, where an old chest sat. The chest had always been there, a silent sentinel in the corner of the room, never moved or touched in all the years I could remember. It was locked, but I had never been curious about what was inside. Till now. I knelt down, the floorboards creaking beneath me, and unlocked the chest. Inside I found stacks of yellowed papers, old photographs, and trinkets from a life long gone. But amidst the clutter there it was, an envelope unmarked, its wax seal cracked and torn. There was no name, no address, only a faint symbol on the front, one I had never seen before. A rose, with a serpent coiled around its stem. The symbol sent a shiver down my spine. I didn't know why, but it felt wrong, like something had been hidden away for a reason. I carefully opened the envelope, my hands trembling. Inside was a single sheet of paper, its edges ragged, as if it had been hastily torn from a notebook. The handwriting was elegant, flowing, almost too perfect. But the words on the page made my heart stop. To my beloved Lucien. I hope this letter finds you in better circumstances than when we last parted. I have no doubt that by the time you read this, I will be gone, for I know the path I am on is one from which I will not return. But do not despair, my love. There is a truth I must reveal to you, one that I should have shared long ago, but fear has kept me silent. The secret I carry is heavy, but you must know it now. The curse that has haunted our family for generations is real. It has not only shaped our destinies, but it has bound us in a way that cannot be undone. The rose you gave me, the rose with the serpent's mark, is the key to breaking this cycle. But be warned, once you begin, there is no going back. You will be forced to choose, and the choice you make will change everything. I cannot say more, for time is short, but know that the answer lies within the rose. If you dare to follow this path, you must go to the place where the last of our blood lies hidden, deep in the forest. Only there can you uncover the truth, and only there can you decide what to do with it. I wish I could be by your side when you make that choice, but I know that is impossible. Goodbye, my love. I hope you find peace, no matter what you choose. Adeline. The letter fell from my hands, fluttering to the floor. Could barely breathe. Who was Lucien? And who was Adeline? The mention of a curse, my family's curse, struck me like a bolt of lightning. My grandmother had always told me stories about an ancient family secret, about something hidden deep within our lineage, but she had always dismissed it as old superstition. Now it seemed that there had been more truth to those stories than I ever realized. The name Lucien felt strangely familiar, but I couldn't place it. And what was this about a rose? And a serpent? The letter didn't make any sense, but it felt important, urgent, as if my grandmother had left this for me, knowing that I would one day need to find it. I stood up, my legs shaking, and looked around the attic. The chest now felt like it was holding something much darker than I had ever imagined. What was I supposed to do with this letter? What was I supposed to do with the curse that seemed to be tied to my family, to me? I glanced at the clock on the wall. The rain had stopped, and the house was eerily quiet. I suddenly felt a pull, something that made me feel like I had no choice but to investigate this further. I had to understand what was going on. I had to find out the truth. And so I made my decision. I had to find Lucien. Chapter 2: The Hidden Path. That night I couldn't sleep. The words of the letter echoed in my mind, looping endlessly. Who was Lucien? Why had my grandmother kept these secrets from me? The more I thought about it, the more questions surfaced, and with each passing hour, my curiosity grew unbearable. The letter spoke of a curse, a secret that had been passed down through generations, but it left so much unexplained. The rose, the serpent, the hidden blood in the forest. It all felt like a riddle I had to solve. The next morning, I decided to go through my grandmother's things again. There had to be more, something I had missed. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew there was more to uncover. The attic, filled with old books, photos, and trinkets, suddenly felt like an archive of mysteries waiting to be solved. I spent hours combing through boxes, opening old leather-bound journals, and searching for anything that could shed light on the strange letter I had found. Finally, near the back of the closet, I found a dusty, old journal. It was leather-bound, much like the ones I had seen in the attic, but this one felt different. It was heavier, the edges were worn, and the clasp had a faint silver symbol etched into it, one that looked very much like the rose and serpent mark I had seen in the letter. My heart skipped a beat. This had to be important. I opened it carefully, and as soon as I did, I felt a rush of energy. The pages inside were filled with tight, elegant writing, handwritten in the same flowing script as the letter. It was my grandmother's handwriting, I was sure of it. She had written about Lucien, about Adeline, and about the curse. Lucien and I met when I was young, and from the very beginning, I knew we were fated. It was impossible to deny the pull between us. But fate, as always, has a cruel way of making its intentions known. I was raised to be strong, to carry the weight of our family's legacy. But Lucien was not prepared for the truth I carried with me, the truth of our bloodline and the curse we were born into. Our family's curse is ancient, older than anyone can truly understand. It began with an ancestor who made a deal with forces beyond our control. The price for such a deal was steep, and so we were bound to it. Generations of love, loss, and betrayal, each life a mere repetition of the one before. We live, we love, we die, and then we are reborn to do it all again. And each time, the cycle grows stronger, more dangerous. The serpent, the rose, they are symbols of this curse. The serpent represents the endless cycle, and the rose is the key to breaking it. Lucien, my love, my heart, you must understand that we cannot escape this. I have tried. I have searched for years for a way to break free, but the truth is, there is no freedom. There is only the choice to live and love within it or to walk away from it all. I cannot tell you what to do, but know that once you decide, there is no turning back. The curse will not be undone easily. It will ask for a price, more than either of us can comprehend. I gasped, my breath catching in my throat as I read the final lines of my grandmother's journal. The words, written with such intensity and pain, confirmed what the letter had suggested. There was no escaping this, no way to outrun the curse that had haunted our bloodline for centuries. But the letter spoke of breaking it, of finding a way out. The key was the rose, and it had something to do with the forest. Forest. I felt a strange pull deep in my gut, like a call from something I couldn't ignore. The forest. It was always something my grandmother had warned me about. Stay away from the woods, she had said countless times when I was a child. There are things there that you will never understand. But now, those warnings didn't seem like the words of an overprotective grandmother. They seemed like a desperate plea to keep me safe from something darker, something I had to face on my own. That afternoon I decided to go to the forest. I didn't know what I expected to find, but I knew that I had to go. It was the only way to learn the truth about Lucien, about the curse, and about my family's dark history. I packed a small bag with water, a flashlight, and a few supplies and left the house. The path to the forest was just a few miles away, hidden behind a thick line of trees that stood like silent sentinels. As I made my way down the overgrown trail, I couldn't help but feel that strange sensation again. The pull, the sense that something was watching me. The deeper I ventured into the woods, the darker it became, despite the late afternoon sun still casting long shadows. The trees seemed to grow denser, the air cooler, until I could barely see the path ahead of me. I walked for what felt like hours, each step feeling heavier than the last. My thoughts raced, unsure of what I was seeking. Was it the truth? Was it a way to break the curse, as my grandmother had hinted? Or was I simply walking into something far more dangerous? The further I went, the quieter it became. There were no birds, no rustling leaves, only the soft crunch of my footsteps on the damp ground. And then, just as I began to doubt my decision, I saw it. Clearing. In the middle of the clearing stood an ancient stone monument, covered in moss and ivy, with strange symbols etched into its surface. I approached it slowly, feeling the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The symbols were the same as the ones in the letter, the rose and the serpent, twisted together. I reached out to touch the stone, my fingers brushing the cold surface. As soon as I did, the ground beneath me trembled, and a low, resonating hum filled the air. I stepped back in shock, but the humming didn't stop. It grew louder, vibrating through my bones, until a bright light erupted from the base of the stone. I shielded my eyes, heart pounding in my chest, as the light consumed everything around me. And then, in an instant, it was gone. I stood in the clearing, breathless, and before me lay a path, newly formed but undeniably real, leading deeper into the forest, where the trees opened into something darker, something ancient. Chapter 3: The Path Beyond. I stood there, frozen, staring at the newly formed path before me. The light had faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the clearing in an eerie stillness. The hum that had filled the air was gone, but its vibration lingered in my chest, as if the very earth beneath my feet had been awakened by whatever force I had just triggered. My heart raced and my hands trembled, unsure whether I was ready to step forward or if I should turn back. But deep down I knew there was no going back now. The path before me seemed to beckon, its edges framed by trees that were far older than any I had seen before. The trunks were gnarled, twisted in unnatural shapes, their bark blackened as if scorched by time itself. The air grew colder, and the shadows between the trees lengthened, despite the sun still hanging low in the sky. The further I looked down the path, the more I could sense something ancient and unfathomable waiting, watching, just beyond the horizon of my understanding. With a deep breath, I took my first step onto the path, the soft crunch of the dry leaves beneath my boots the only sound to break the silence. I didn't know where this road would lead, but I knew I had to follow it. For years I had heard whispers of this forest, of its power, its secrets, of the legacy that had been passed down through generations. It was a place of myth, of forgotten things. And now it was calling me. As I walked, the dense canopy above me filtered the light, casting everything in a twilight glow. The path seemed to shift, as though it were alive, winding and curving in ways that defied the natural order. There were no animal tracks, no signs of life, just the eerie stillness that pressed in from all sides. It felt like the forest was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. After what felt like hours of walking, the path opened up into a small, secluded glade. In the center stood a well, old and worn, with ivy climbing up its stone sides. The stonework was intricate, almost too delicate for something so old, and on the front of the well I saw it again, the same symbol, the rose and serpent intertwined. I approached the well cautiously, every instinct telling me to turn back, but my feet moved on their own, drawn to the sight. As I reached the edge of the well, I peered inside. The darkness within was absolute, so deep that I couldn't make out the bottom, only the black void that seemed to stretch forever. There was a feeling in my gut that told me I was standing on the edge of something far greater than I could comprehend. I ran my fingers over the cool stone, tracing the symbol that had appeared in the letter and my grandmother's journal. My skin tingled as though the symbol was charged with some kind of energy, as if it held the key to everything I had been seeking. Suddenly a voice, soft but unmistakable, whispered through the air. "You have come just as they all do." Froze. The voice was feminine, melodic, and though it didn't seem to come from any one place, it filled the space around me. My heart pounded in my chest. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaky but firm. "You know who I am," the voice replied. "I am the one who guards the truth, the one who watches over the path that leads to the curse. You are not the first to seek answers here, and you will not be the last. But you have one choice, and only one." The air around me grew thick, and I could feel a presence, a weight pressing in from every direction. It was as though the forest itself was alive, watching me, waiting for me to make the wrong move. The chill in the air intensified, but I refused to let fear control me. I had already come this far, hadn't I? There was no turning back. "Tell me what to do," I demanded, my voice stronger than I felt. "What is the curse? What do I need to do to break it?" There was a pause, and then the voice responded, its tone sadder, almost wistful. "The curse you seek to end is a bond forged long ago, a bond between those who could never be together, and yet could never be apart. You, child, are the key to its end. But to break it, you must understand its origins." I felt a flicker of recognition. "Lucien," I whispered, though I wasn't sure why the name had slipped from my lips. "Ah, Lucien," the voice echoed, a hint of longing in its tone. "Lucien is the one who caused the curse to begin with. But it is not only his fate that is tied to yours. It is yours too." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. "What do you mean?" I asked, barely able to breathe. "What happened to Lucien? What do I need to know?" "Lucien made a choice that bound him to the curse, and that curse was passed down to each generation, including you," the voice explained. "You are the last in the line of those who can undo what was done, but to do so, you must find the rose and the serpent. Only when they are united will the curse be broken. But know this, once the bond is undone, something must be sacrificed." I felt a cold chill seep into my bones. "Sacrificed?" I repeated, barely able to speak. "Yes," the voice confirmed. "A life will be lost in the breaking of the curse. It is the price of freedom." I took a step back, my breath quickening. The weight of the words pressed down on me, crushing me with their inevitability. A life would be lost. How could I make such a choice? "You must decide," the voice whispered. "And once the choice is made, there is no turning back." Before I could speak, the wind shifted, and the voice faded into the distance, leaving only the haunting silence of the forest behind. My mind raced as I stood there, staring at the well, the rose and serpent carved into its stone surface. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could do what was required of me. But one thing was certain: the curse was real, and it was my fate to end it. Chapter 4. The Heart of the Curse. The wind had stilled as suddenly as it had started, leaving behind a thick silence that pressed on my ears like a weight. My chest felt tight, the air thick with the weight of the voice's words. A life will be lost in the breaking of the curse. The thought circled in my mind, growing louder with each passing second. How could I be the one to make that choice? I stepped back from the well, my eyes fixed on the serpent and rose symbol, now etched in my mind forever. The path that had opened before me seemed to stretch onward, beckoning me into the depths of the forest. But the decision I had to make, the burden I had been given, gnawed at me like a constant ache. I could feel the curse, palpable now, winding its tendrils through my thoughts. There was no escape from it. The path was set, and I was a part of it. But the question remained: could I truly bring myself to make such a sacrifice? I walked in a daze, the forest around me unchanged, yet everything felt different. The trees seemed to lean in, as if watching me, waiting for my next move. The air was heavier, thicker, as though it held the weight of centuries of secrets. My heart hammered in my chest as I walked, my every step seeming to echo in the emptiness of the woods. The forest seemed endless, and as the daylight began to fade, the path narrowed, twisting and turning with no clear destination. Yet I continued forward, driven by something I couldn't quite place, a combination of fear, urgency, and a strange sense of purpose. There was something ahead, something waiting for me. I could feel it. After what felt like hours of walking, I came to another clearing. This one was different. The trees here were wider, their trunks dark and smooth, and the air hummed with an energy that made my skin tingle. At the center of the clearing was an altar, a stone structure ancient and weathered, but unmistakable in its purpose. The altar was surrounded by what appeared to be a ring of withered roses, their petals long since gone, leaving only twisted stems that coiled like serpents at their base. A low, throbbing hum filled the air again, but this time it was stronger, more resonant, as though the very ground beneath me vibrated with the power of the place. The altar was etched with the same symbols I had seen, the rose and serpent. But here they were intertwined in a way that felt alive, their energy palpable. The very air seemed to hum with the magic that had bound this place together for centuries. My legs trembled, but I knew I had no choice but to approach the altar. I walked slowly, as though the very act of moving closer to it would trigger something ancient and powerful. As I neared, the roses that surrounded the altar began to twitch. It was subtle at first, but then the stems began to writhe as if alive, twisting and curling in the air. I stopped dead in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest. A voice, this time not in the air, but from deep within the ground, resonated in my bones. "You have come." It wasn't a question. It was a statement, as if the forest had known I would arrive long before I even thought of coming. The voice was not one that could be heard with the ears, but felt deep inside, as though it had always been a part of me. It echoed through my mind, familiar yet foreign. I knelt before the altar, unable to speak, unable to tear my gaze away from the roiling energy before me. And then, just as I thought I could bear it no longer, the voice spoke again. "The rose and the serpent must be united. They're one. Together, they hold the power to undo what has been done. But you must decide. Will you bring them together?" I wanted to scream, to shout in frustration. How could I possibly decide? What did the voice mean? What was the price? "The power lies within your hands. But nothing in this world, or the next, comes without consequence. The curse has claimed many before you. It will claim more unless you are brave enough to end it." My fingers trembled, and I reached out to the altar. The roses around me seemed to lean in, their dried petals swaying in a non-existent breeze. As my hand hovered over the stone, I felt it. A pull, a magnetic force, a connection I couldn't deny. I was standing at the edge of something vast, something so much bigger than myself, than anything I had ever known. This was the moment of decision, the moment I had been waiting for. And yet, I wasn't sure I could do it. The voice spoke again, softer this time, a whisper that curled around my mind like smoke. "Lucien." The name broke through my thoughts, as if it had been waiting for the right moment to surface. Lucien. That name had haunted me from the moment I found the letter, from the first mention of the curse. But why? Who was he? What was his connection to me, to this cursed legacy? I closed my eyes, trying to push away the uncertainty that clouded my mind. I couldn't allow myself to hesitate now. If there was any chance to break this curse, to free myself, to free everyone who had suffered through it, I had to act. I had to be the one to make the choice. With a deep breath, I reached forward and touched the stone. The moment my fingers made contact, the air around me shifted, crackling with energy. The roses began to glow faintly, their twisted stems unfurling as if waking from a long slumber. The serpent's mark etched into the altar pulsed, and for a moment, I thought I could feel a heartbeat, slow and steady, as if the curse itself was alive and waiting to be released. "You have chosen," the voice whispered. "Now the time has come." The ground trembled beneath me. The roses and serpents on the altar seemed to come alive, twisting and turning as though they were preparing for something. And then, with a final, deafening roar, the world around me seemed to collapse inward. The light around the altar flickered, dimming, and for the first time, I understood the weight of what was at stake. The curse was here. The serpent, the rose, Lucien's fate, my fate. It was all intertwined in this moment. But there was still one thing I didn't know. What would happen when the curse was finally broken? Chapter 5: The Choice. The tremor beneath my feet didn't stop. The ground beneath me seemed to pulse, as though it were alive, as if it was breathing with me, in time with my racing heart. The roses twisted and writhed around the altar, their dried petals now shimmering with a strange light. The serpent symbols on the stone altar seemed to ripple, as if the stone itself were alive, as if the very essence of the curse was awakening. It was no longer a myth, no longer a story passed down through generations. It was real. It was now. I withdrew my hand from the stone, my fingers trembling. A cold sweat beaded on my forehead, and the air around me felt thick, like I was drowning in it. But my decision was made. I had chosen. Or had I? My thoughts were a blur, my mind caught between the weight of the moment and the nagging doubt that had been gnawing at me since the voice had first spoken. The voice, soft and resonant, reverberated through the space once more. "You have chosen," it said, but this time it didn't feel like a statement. Felt like a warning. Suddenly, I was not alone in the clearing. A figure appeared, stepping out from the shadows of the forest. My heart skipped a beat as I saw the man who stood before me. Tall with dark, disheveled hair. He had the air of someone who had spent years, decades, trapped within the confines of this cursed place. His eyes, however, were what caught my attention. They were hauntingly familiar. Familiar in a way that unsettled me. They were the same eyes I had seen in my grandmother's journal, the same eyes that had haunted my dreams for weeks. Lucien. The name formed on my lips before I could stop it. "Lucien," I whispered, but he didn't seem to react to it. His gaze was distant, his expression unreadable. "You have come," he said, his voice low, gravelly. "I knew you would." I felt my knees weaken at the sight of him. The figure that had haunted my thoughts, the man whose fate was intertwined with mine, was here, standing before me. The connection between us was undeniable, like a thread that had been wound through time, bringing us together at this moment. What is this?" I asked, unable to mask the tremor in my voice. "What is happening? Why are you here?" Lucien's gaze softened for the briefest of moments, and for a second, I saw something human in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold, distant stare that seemed to belong to a man who had long ago accepted his fate. "The curse," he said simply. "It has always been my burden to bear. It has been passed down through generations, from one lover to the next. And now it is yours." "But why me?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "Why am I the one who must break it? What happens if I do?" Lucien took a step closer, his presence almost overwhelming. The air seemed to grow heavier as he approached, and I felt an unfamiliar sense of dread wash over me. The path I had walked to get here felt so long, and yet, now that I was standing at the precipice of what I had feared most, I wondered if I had ever truly known what I was getting into. "The price," Lucien murmured, his voice tinged with sorrow. "The price of breaking the curse is not one you can ever undo. It will require a sacrifice, a life to pay for the freedom of others. That is the cost." I could feel the weight of his words sinking into my chest. "But who?" gasped. "Who will be sacrificed?" Lucien's eyes darkened. He didn't need to say it. The truth was evident in his gaze. It would be him. The realization hit me like a cold slap. My pulse quickened, my breath caught in my throat. "You," I whispered. "It's you who will." "I made the choice long ago," Lucien interrupted softly. His eyes clouded with the same pain that had haunted him for so long. "The curse was always my burden to carry. I bound myself to it to protect others. But you have the chance to end it. You can never be free. But you can choose a different path." I looked at him, the man who had been both a victim and a perpetrator of this curse. The man whose love had once been my grandmother's, the one whose fate had been sealed by the bloodlines we shared. His sacrifice had been inevitable, his soul bound by the curse that had destroyed everything in its path. But now it was my turn. I couldn't breathe. The weight of the decision, the power I held in my hands, seemed like too much for anyone to bear. "I didn't ask for this," I said quietly, my voice trembling. I didn't ask for any of it. Lucien's lips curled into a sad, bitter smile. None of us do, he replied softly. But sometimes fate doesn't care whether we ask for it or not. I could feel the air shifting again, the energy surrounding the altar growing heavier. The roses twisted violently, their once dried petals now glowing with a strange light. The serpent coiled and uncoiled, its movements hypnotic, almost like a living creature. A low, rumbling growl echoed from deep within the forest, distant but growing nearer. The curse was awakening. You must make your choice, Lucien said, his voice trembling now, as if the weight of it was too much for him to bear. Will you break the curse? Will you save us all? But then something else stirred within me. Thought. A dangerous, reckless thought. What if there was another way? What if breaking the curse didn't mean sacrificing Lucien? What if there was a way to end it without loss? I glanced at the altar once more, the rose and the serpent, and then my eyes fell back on Lucien. He stood before me, his face etched with centuries of pain and regret. His love for my grandmother, his soul's entanglement with the curse, it had all led to this moment, and I was supposed to decide whether he lived or died. But what if I didn't have to choose at all? My heart raced as I stepped back, my mind spinning. There had to be a way, there had to be something in all the history, in all the ancient knowledge, that could break this cycle without costing Lucien's life. But was I strong enough to find it? Tell me, I said, my voice steady, though fear clung to it. Is there truly no other way? Is there no way to break the curse without sacrifice? Lucien's expression darkened, and for the first time, his eyes seemed to hold fear. I wish there were, he said quietly. But the curse demands a price. It always has. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing in on me again. Choice was mine, and I would have to make it. But just before I could speak again, something else shifted in the forest. A sound, a rustling in the trees that wasn't quite right. A low, hollow laugh echoed from the depths of the woods. And for the first time I realized something. I wasn't alone. Chapter 6. The Shadow's Voice. The laugh reverberated through the forest, sending a shiver down my spine. It was deep, mocking, and full of malice, a sound that seemed to seep into the very air around me. The roses surrounding the altar trembled as if reacting to the sound, their stems twisting like snakes disturbed from their slumber. The energy in the clearing shifted, growing darker, thicker, and more oppressive. I felt my breath catch in my throat as I instinctively took a step back from the altar. Lucien's eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw something other than sorrow and resignation in his expression. Fear. His body tensed, and he looked toward the trees where the laugh had come from. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. Who's there? I called out, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to sound steady. A figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette cloaked in darkness, almost too tall, too elongated to be human. My heart raced as the figure stepped into the faint light cast by the altar, revealing the form of a man. Or at least something that looked like a man. His skin was ashen, his eyes a piercing, unnatural shade of red that glowed faintly in the dim light. His hair was long, black as midnight, and flowed in strange waves around his face, like smoke curling in the air. The figure's lips curled into a twisted smile. I see you've come, child, he said, his voice low and melodic, but with a distinct edge of something ancient and dangerous. Just as I knew you would. The words hit me like a jolt, and for a moment I couldn't speak. My gaze flickered to Lucien, whose face had gone pale. His body seemed to sag under the weight of whatever recognition he held. He seemed afraid. Who are you? I demanded, trying to find my voice again. What do you want? The figure's smile widened. I am the one who watches over the curse, he said with an unsettling calmness. I am the one who ensures that the balance is maintained. The one who ensures that the legacy continues. My heart skipped a beat. The legacy? I echoed, the words heavy in my mouth. What do you mean? The figure stepped closer, and the air seemed to crackle with his presence. He moved like a shadow, his movements too fluid, too unnatural to be entirely human. He stopped just in front of me, and the temperature dropped dramatically. I could feel the cold of his gaze even before he spoke again. "You do not know, do you?" he asked, his voice dripping with mockery. "How amusing. The girl who holds the key to the curse, and yet she knows so little. Let me enlighten you." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. I was no longer afraid of the choice I had to make. I was afraid of what this figure represented. The curse had always felt like a heavy weight on my shoulders, but now it felt like something far older, more insidious than I could have imagined. "The curse is not simply a matter of love or loss as you think," the figure continued, his eyes gleaming with malice. "It is not just a burden that has been passed down through generations. It is a prison for the soul. A prison that cannot be broken unless the one who holds the key willingly sacrifices themselves to it." "No," Lucien said, his voice hoarse, a tinge of desperation creeping into his tone. "This is not how it works." The figure turned to him, his gaze sharp and unyielding. "You, Lucien, have been the jailer and the prisoner all this time. The curse was always meant to bind you, to keep you from escaping it, from ending it. But now—" He turned back to me, his gaze piercing through the darkness. "Now you stand on the precipice of everything. You must choose, break the curse, and free him. But know this, it is not just his freedom that will come at a price." Cold shiver ran down my spine. The air around me felt thick with the weight of the words, each syllable dropping like a stone into the silence of the clearing. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. "What do you mean?" I whispered, the question barely escaping my lips. The figure's eyes glowed brighter, and he smiled again, a cruel, knowing smile. "The curse was never truly about Lucien, or your grandmother, or you. It is about the balance of power. The rose and the serpent, those symbols are not just relics of a forgotten time. They are the keepers of the curse, the vessels that control its ebb and flow. But they can also destroy it. And they will, if you are strong enough to endure the cost." "Stop," I said, my voice growing more frantic. "Just tell me what you want." The figure's smile faltered, and his voice dropped to a whisper, heavy with dark promise. "I want you to break the curse. I want you to destroy it once and for all. But in doing so, I want you to understand what it means to take the life of one who is bound by it." My heart pounded in my chest as the figure's words seemed to sink into my soul. I could feel the weight of his presence, the power that emanated from him, and it was more than I could bear. For the first time I realized the depth of the choices before me. Lucien was right. The curse wasn't just a thing of love, of passion, of past mistakes. It was something ancient, something that controlled everything in its path. And it was something I could end or I could perpetuate. But as I looked at Lucien, at the man who had been bound to this fate for so long, I could see the toll it had taken on him. His eyes were filled with a sorrow that seemed to span lifetimes. The agony of knowing that he was both the cause and the victim of the curse was written in every line of his face. "I didn't ask for this either," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "I didn't want this life. But now you must decide, because you are the one who can end it." The figure stepped back, disappearing into the shadows once more. "The decision is yours, child. Remember, however, that once you make your choice, there will be no going back." The forest was silent once again, the eerie tension thick in the air. The roses were still now, no longer glowing, their twisted stems unmoving. But I could feel the energy pulsing around me, waiting, hungry for whatever decision I would make. I turned to Lucien, my heart in my throat, my thoughts racing. "What do I do?" I whispered. But before he could answer, I felt something deep within me shift. A sudden, unexplainable certainty. I knew what I had to do. Chapter 7. The Unraveling. The certainty I felt deep inside me was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It wasn't just a decision, it was a call. The forest had been alive with ancient power for centuries, and now, in this very moment, That power seemed to be coursing through me. The weight of the choice was unbearable, but a strange clarity settled over me, a calm before the storm. I looked at Lucien, and for the first time I didn't see the man bound by a curse. I saw a soul just like mine, caught in the web of forces much larger than either of us. I took a deep breath. "I know what I must do," I said, though my voice wavered, as though the words themselves were unfamiliar. Lucien's eyes widened. "No, you can't," he began, but I raised my hand, silencing him. "I have to," I said firmly. "If this curse is ever to end, I have to do it. I'll end it for both of us." A silence hung in the air. Even the trees seemed to hold their breath, the weight of my words settling over the clearing. The figure, whatever he was gone, but his presence lingered, as though he were watching from the shadows, waiting for me to make my move. The altar glowed faintly again, the roses now more alive than they had been. They twisted and shifted, the energy in the clearing palpable. But there was something else, something darker that had taken hold of the moment. The air grew colder, and the ground beneath me seemed to pulse with an ominous rhythm. It was as though the very fabric of the curse was unraveling, shifting beneath my feet, and there was no telling what would emerge from it. I turned my attention back to Lucien. He stood motionless, as though he were trying to process what I had just said. His face a mixture of relief, confusion, and fear. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. "Lucien," I whispered, stepping closer. "I'm sorry." He shook his head, his lips trembling as he finally found his voice. "You don't have to do this. You can't. If you do this, you'll be bound to it forever, just like me. You'll lose everything." His words pierced me, but the resolve inside me only grew stronger. The curse had already taken so much. It had taken my grandmother, my family's peace, and the love that had once been between her and Lucien. It had robbed us of the freedom to live without fear. But I refused to let it take me too. "I won't lose everything," I said, reaching for the serpent-shaped pendant around my neck. The one my grandmother had left me. The one I had worn without ever truly understanding its meaning. "I'll find a way to break it. Completely." Lucien's eyes widened as he saw the pendant in my hand, and something in his gaze shifted, as if a flood of memories came rushing back to him. "No," he said, his voice frantic. No, you don't understand. The pendant, it's not just a symbol of the curse. It's its anchor. If you try to break it with that, it will destroy you." I felt a chill crawl up my spine as the weight of his words sank in. Pendant. The very thing my grandmother had worn, the symbol of the love and the curse, was not just a token of protection. It was a connection, a tether that had kept the curse alive all these years. The thought of breaking it seemed almost impossible. "I can't just let it continue," I whispered, my voice hoarse with emotion. "I can't live with this on my shoulders, knowing that I could have ended it." For a moment, Lucien seemed to struggle with something. Perhaps his own guilt, his own sense of responsibility for the curse, but it was clear that he knew there was no other way. His eyes met mine, and I saw the understanding pass between us. The burden had always been on him, but it was mine now. I could feel it. The curse had chosen me. The wind began to pick up again, swirling around the clearing as if in response to my decision. The roses twisted more violently, their petals falling off one by one, disappearing into the air. The serpent symbol on the altar pulsed with a dark, foreboding light, and I felt the earth tremble beneath my feet. Lucien stepped forward, his eyes filled with desperation. "Please," he begged, his voice cracking. "You don't know what this will cost you." "I know," I said softly, my hand tightening around the pendant. "But it's the only way." I closed my eyes and took a step toward the altar. The moment I did, the ground beneath me seemed to shift again, the energy growing heavier, more suffocating. The air was thick with power, and I could feel it building, rising to a crescendo. It was as though the very earth was holding its breath, waiting for the moment of truth. Lucien's voice was a faint echo as I reached out, trembling, and placed the pendant on the stone altar. The moment my fingers touched it, there was a blinding flash of light, and I felt the entire world around me shift. The ground beneath my feet cracked, and the air turned to fire. It felt as if every part of me was being torn apart and reassembled at once, the power of the curse ripping through my very being. I wanted to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. My vision blurred as the light enveloped me, burning hot, then cold, then impossibly hot again. Every nerve in my body screamed with the intensity of the power surging through me. And then, in the distance, I heard the voice. Not the figure's voice, but something softer, something familiar. "You have the power, child. You are the key. You must endure." It was my grandmother's voice. Suddenly, the light dimmed, and the pain subsided. I opened my eyes, gasping for breath, and looked around. The altar was glowing brightly, but the roses had stopped moving. The serpent symbol had faded. The clearing, once charged with darkness, was now bathed in the warm glow of the moonlight. Lucien was beside me, his face pale, but his eyes wide with disbelief. "You did it," he whispered. "You really did it." I looked down at the pendant in my hand. It was no longer glowing. It had lost its power. And with it, the curse had been broken. But in that moment, I knew that there was more to this story than I could ever have imagined. The choice I had made was not the end. It was only the beginning. Chapter 8. The echo of a new beginning. The silence that followed felt almost unbearable. The clearing, once thick with dark energy, now seemed peaceful, the kind of quiet that settles after a storm has passed. The roses, once so alive with strange, twisting energy, lay still now, their petals scattered across the altar. The serpent symbol had vanished entirely, leaving behind only the faintest imprint on the stone. The pendant in my hand, the one that had been the source of the curse, had lost its shimmer. It was just a piece of metal now, no longer connected to the force that had bound Lucien, my grandmother, and so many others to this twisted fate. I held the pendant tightly, my fingers still trembling, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on me. I had broken the curse. I had freed Lucien. But the price. What had I truly paid? My heart pounded in my chest, and a deep, gnawing uncertainty curled in my gut. Was it truly over? I turned to Lucien, who stood by my side, his expression unreadable. He hadn't said a word since the light had faded, but I could see the turmoil in his eyes. The curse that had bound us together for so long had finally been lifted. But in its place, something else lingered, something I couldn't name. "You're free," I whispered, unable to hold back the words that had been building inside me. "You're free, Lucien." His gaze softened, but there was no joy in it, only sorrow, a sorrow I now recognized as his burden. His gaze dropped to the pendant in my hand, and I followed it, my eyes tracing the delicate lines of the symbol etched into its surface. "The curse is gone," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "But you've changed." I looked at him, confused, my heart skipping a beat. "What do you mean? It's over. We've broken it. You're free." He shook his head slowly, his hands falling to his sides. "Not entirely." He sighed deeply. "Not for you." I blinked, my heart sinking. "What do you mean? I've broken it. You're free." Lucien's eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw something else in them, something ancient, something familiar. A warning. "You don't understand," he said, his voice more urgent now. "The curse. It's not just about love. It's not just about two people. It's about fate. About destiny. You're tied to it too now. You don't just break a curse like this. It changes you." Cold shiver ran down my spine. I stared at him, my breath caught in my throat. The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy cloak, and the peace I had felt just moments ago was replaced by an overwhelming dread. "What are you talking about?" I asked, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. Lucien stepped closer to me, his eyes filled with a strange mixture of fear and regret. "The curse is not just an external force. It is an echo of a far older, darker power. A power that has been running through your bloodline, through my bloodline, for generations. When you broke it, you didn't just free me. You unleashed something deeper. Something that is tied to your very existence. The energy that has coursed through you, it's still there. You're connected to it, whether you want to be or not. I felt my pulse quicken as I processed his words. So, you're saying, I'm still cursed? Lucien didn't answer immediately. His face was drawn with pain, and his voice broke as he spoke again. No, you're not cursed, but you're changed. The magic, the power that the curse wielded, it doesn't just disappear. Has to go somewhere. And now it's in you. It's part of you. I took a step back, my heart racing. My breath quickened as I felt the world shift again. The air around me thickening. I felt it. Something deep inside me, a pulse, an energy, a power that had been lying dormant, waiting. It was as though I had opened a door that I could never close again. Lucien, I don't understand, I said, my voice trembling now. I don't want this. I didn't ask for this. He reached out to me, his fingers brushing my wrist gently, the warmth of his touch grounding me, but it did little to ease the panic rising within me. No one asks for it. But the moment you touched the pendant, the moment you made the choice to break the curse, you made a pact with the forces that have been watching over you. You may not feel it now, but the power inside you is growing. It will grow whether you embrace it or not. I shook my head, the world tilting beneath me. The weight of what he was saying was too much, too impossible. I had never asked for any of this. I had wanted nothing more than to end the pain, to free Lucien and myself from the chains of this ancient curse. But I hadn't anticipated this new burden, this power that seemed to consume everything in its path. You have to help me, I pleaded, my voice raw with desperation. How do I stop it? How do I make it go away? Lucien's expression darkened, his jaw tightening. You can't. Once you've opened the door, it's impossible to close. But you don't have to face it alone. He stepped closer, his hand brushing my cheek gently. I will be here. I will help you learn to control it. I stared into his eyes, my heart torn between the fear of what I was becoming and the desire to trust him, to lean on him as I always had. But now everything had changed. I wasn't just a girl anymore, a victim of a curse. I was something else, something more. Lucien, I don't know if I can do this, I whispered, my voice cracking with uncertainty. I never wanted any of this. I know, he said softly. His voice filled with a deep, painful understanding. But now you have a choice. You can embrace this power, learn to control it. Or you can fight it. But no matter what, you can't run from it. The curse may be broken, but the legacy of it remains inside you. I looked down at my hands, at the way the pendant now rested loosely in my palm, and felt the energy pulsing through me, faint but undeniable. It was there, alive, awakening, and there was no turning back. The weight of the world seemed to press on me, the responsibility too great to bear. I had broken the curse, freed Lucien, but in doing so, I had become a part of something much bigger than myself. And now, I had to figure out how to live with it. Then we'll face it together, I whispered, my voice shaking but resolute. Lucien smiled softly, though it didn't reach his eyes. Yes, together. But even as the words left his lips, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone in this battle. That there were forces still watching, waiting, and they would not let us go so easily. Chapter 9, The Heart of the Storm. The days that followed were a blur. I felt like I was walking through a haze, as if the world around me was muted, distant, and out of focus. It was as though the power that had been unlocked within me had overwhelmed my senses. At night, the dreams began. Visions of swirling shadows, voices calling out in strange languages, and images of long-forgotten places that seemed eerily familiar. The power inside me was growing stronger, and with it, my connection to the curse. But it wasn't just the magic that haunted me. It was the weight of my choices. Lucien stayed by my side, but even his presence felt like a distant comfort. He tried to teach me how to control the energy, how to focus it, but it wasn't something that could be learned in a few days. The power within me was untamed, wild, and it felt like it was always on the edge of consuming me. There were moments when I could almost feel it take hold, tugging at my thoughts, twisting my emotions, making me feel as though I was slipping into something dark. But it was more than just the magic. There was something else. A growing sense of dread that settled in my chest every time I closed my eyes. A nagging feeling that there was something watching me, waiting for me to slip. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold, Lucien and I walked through the forest. The air had a peculiar stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Lucien's hand was wrapped around mine, his grip firm, but I could sense the tension in his touch, the worry that had begun to seep into every moment. We had been walking for hours, but the silence was becoming too heavy to bear. "You've been quiet," I said, my voice low, breaking the silence. "Too quiet. What's going on, Lucien?" He didn't answer immediately. His brow furrowed, and for a long moment, he seemed lost in thought. The woods around us were eerily quiet, the usual sounds of birds and insects absent. The only noise was the crunch of leaves beneath our feet. Finally he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something I haven't told you." I stopped in my tracks, the weight of his words stopping me cold. "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart suddenly racing. Lucien took a deep breath, as if bracing himself for what he was about to say. "The power inside you, it's not just from the curse. It's ancient, older than the curse itself. And it's tied to something far more dangerous than I ever realized." I swallowed hard, the air in my lungs suddenly feeling thin. "What are you talking about?" "There's a force," he continued, his voice heavy with the weight of the truth he was about to reveal. "Something older than the curse, something that has been watching us for generations. The curse you broke, it was a seal, a barrier that kept that force locked away. When you destroyed the curse, you didn't just free me. You unleashed it." I felt my legs give way beneath me, and I stumbled, catching myself on a nearby tree for support. "What? No, that can't be possible. I didn't mean to, Lucien, I didn't." "I know," he interrupted gently, but his face was etched with guilt and fear. "But it's true. The power you hold now, it's not just the magic of the curse. It's the power of the storm, the one that lies at the heart of everything, the one that has been bound by blood and time. And now it's free." I couldn't breathe. My mind spun, my heart pounded so loudly in my chest that I couldn't hear anything else. The curse had been broken, but now I had unleashed something far more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. Something that had been locked away for centuries. I felt a wave of panic rise in my throat. "What is it? What is this force? What does it want with me?" I asked, my voice trembling. Lucien hesitated, his eyes darkening with the weight of the truth he was about to share. "It doesn't want anything from you. Not directly, at least. It wants the world. It wants to reclaim what it lost long ago." "The world?" I echoed, my voice barely a whisper. "What do you mean?" "It's a storm," Lucien said, his voice heavy with a deep, terrifying sadness. "A force of nature. Power that has been bound by blood, by our blood. And now it's free. And it will destroy everything in its path, unless you can stop it." The forest seemed to close in around me, the air thick and suffocating. My vision blurred, and I staggered, gripping Lucien's arm to steady myself. "How do I stop it?" I whispered, my breath shallow, panic flooding my veins. Lucien didn't answer at first. He seemed lost in his thoughts, his eyes distant. But then his voice cracked, a raw, painful sound. "I don't know. I've never faced it before. But I know that it's been watching you. It's been waiting for you to unleash it. And now that it's free, it won't stop until it has what it wants." The ground beneath me seemed to tremble, and I staggered back, my heart racing. "Lucien, please. Tell me there's something we can do. Please. I can't let this happen. I won't let this happen." He pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly, but even his embrace couldn't quell the growing dread that had taken root in my chest. The storm, this ancient force, was real and it was coming for me. "I'll help you," he whispered. "We'll figure it out. Together. But we have to be ready. It's not just a curse, it's the heart of the storm. And if we can't stop it..." I closed my eyes, trying to push the terrifying thought away. I couldn't let this happen. Not now. Not after everything we had been through. But in my heart I knew he was right. The storm was real and it was coming. And there was only one thing I knew for sure. I was the one who had set it free. Chapter 10, The Storm Within. The wind began to pick up again, the trees around us swaying violently as if the very forest itself was in turmoil. The ground beneath my feet trembled, a deep, unsettling vibration that resonated through my bones. The sky above had darkened, clouds swirling together in a violent crescendo, blotting out the stars and casting everything in an eerie, unnatural twilight. Lucien held me tighter, his grip unyielding, as though he feared I might disappear into the storm at any moment. But I wasn't sure if I could stand the weight of what was happening anymore. The fear that had been gnawing at the edges of my mind was now consuming me. I had unleashed something beyond my comprehension, something ancient and dangerous, and there was no escaping it. "Lucien!" My voice trembled, and I pulled away just enough to look into his eyes, searching for some flicker of hope. "What do we do? How do we stop it?" He didn't immediately answer, his brow furrowed in concentration, his gaze flickering to the sky as if he were reading the signs in the dark clouds above. The storm was coming faster now, the wind howling louder, and the earth beneath us seemed to pulse with a rhythm that mirrored my own frantic heartbeat. "I'm not sure," he finally said, his voice thick with worry. "But we can't let it control you. That's the key. We have to stop it from consuming you because once it does, it won't stop. You'll be the storm." The thought sent a cold shiver down my spine. The storm wasn't just some external force. It was inside me. The power that had been unleashed was tethered to me, waiting to rise, waiting to take control. It wanted me. It wanted to be a part of me, to transform me into something I was terrified to become. "Control me," I whispered. "How do I control it? I can't even understand it." Lucien's eyes softened, and he reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "You have the power, the strength to fight it. You've already done so much. You freed me. You broke the curse. You've survived everything it threw at you. You can survive this too." But I wasn't so sure. I didn't feel like I had any strength left. The storm was growing inside me, its presence becoming more overwhelming by the second, and the more I tried to push it away, the more it pushed back. I could feel it swirling just beneath my skin, a restless energy, like a wild beast trapped inside a cage, desperate to break free. "What if I can't control it?" said my voice breaking. "What if it's too much?" Lucien stepped closer, his hand now cupping my cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "You won't be alone. You never have to be alone in this." I looked into his eyes, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. Connection. A tether between us that no storm could tear apart. He had been there for me through everything, through the curse, through the heartbreak, and now through this new, terrifying challenge. "I don't want to lose you, Lucien," I whispered, the words coming from a place of raw vulnerability. "I don't want to become that." "You won't," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the chaos around us. "We'll face this together. You have more power than you realize, more than anyone could ever know. But the only way to stop it is to face it head-on, to embrace it." "Embrace it," I repeated, my brow furrowing. "You mean, let it inside me?" Lucien nodded slowly. "Not let it consume you, but let it be a part of you. Acknowledge it. Accept that it's there. Only then can you control it, tame it. Otherwise, it will take over." The wind howled louder, the trees around us groaning and bending as if the storm were pulling them from their roots. The ground beneath us cracked open, a deep, resonating rumble echoing through the forest, shaking the very earth beneath our feet. I felt the power surge within me again, rising like a tidal wave, clawing at the edges of my thoughts. It was in me, I could feel it. It was no longer just a force outside, an abstract thing to be feared. It was part of me, like blood in my veins. "It's here," I said, my voice shaking. "It's inside me." Lucien's eyes held mine, his expression intense, unwavering. "Then you have to decide. You have to make a choice." "A choice?" I asked, struggling to make sense of what he was saying. He nodded. "You can let the storm break you, let it take you over, or you can stand firm. Face it, harness it. You have the strength, just like you've always had. You can't run from it." The storm raged louder now, a deafening roar filling the air, as though the world itself was splitting in two. But amidst the chaos, I heard the whisper of my grandmother's voice, soft and steady in the back of my mind. "You are stronger than you know. You hold the key. Trust yourself." I took a deep breath, my hand closing around the pendant once more, the last remaining link to the curse. The power within me surged again, but this time I didn't fight it. I let it flow through me, feel it pulse through my veins, every fiber of my being alive with it. The storm, the magic, it was part of me now. But I wasn't going to let it consume me. Not now. Not ever. I looked at Lucien, my heart pounding in my chest, and nodded. "I'm ready." He smiled at me, his eyes filled with both pride and fear. "Then let's face this storm together." The wind howled, the earth shook, and the storm above us reached its peak. But in that moment, as I drew on the power inside me, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was the storm, yes, but I was also the calm. And I would control it. Then,